Please listen carefully.
Welcome back to the Focus Target Podcast. This is your host, Smiley. With me today, Shy and Van. What's up, gentlemen?
What it do, boo?
Doing all right?
All right, that's what I like to hear. We are back with episode 109 of the Focus Target Podcast. Today, we are going to be going into the Book of Boba Fett. So, Book of Boba Fett was out on Disney Plus. We got through. We got what, 7 episodes, 6 episodes? I think it was 7.
Seven.
It was kind of weird, kind of a weird number of
7.
episodes. I don't know what was up with that. But if you have not caught up on the Book of Boba Fett, if you have not gotten through all 7 episodes, you can hang around for our question of the day, but probably ought to watch the episodes first because we will be spoiling basically the entire season. And we're also going to talk about relationships to the broader Star Wars universe, The Mandalorian season 1 and 2. So if you're not caught up on that stuff, this is your spoiler warning. You have been warned. You should watch that first. They're all pretty good. They're all worth watching, I would say. So, yeah, let's get into that. But before we get into Book of Boba Fett, we've got our question of the day. And today's question of the day is actually a quote of the day. Last time on the Focus Target Podcast, we talked about the interview with Seth Rogen and James Franco. And so my question of the day is, what is your favorite quote from the interview? Because there's so many to choose from. I'm going to start with Van. Van, favorite quote from the interview? I know it's hard to pick just one.
There are so many to choose from, and I didn't know what direction to go with on this one. But I kept coming back, and I kept circling back to same, but different. But we are still same. And the reason being is not that it's necessarily the funniest. It is funny. It is hilarious, especially like the whole delivery and everything like that. But because of like the legs that it grew, and it's just taken upon itself to become this cultural phenom that's now like used commonly at least once a week in my circle of people. And I'm not just talking about you two. I'm talking about at work. I'm talking about everywhere. Like same is now an acceptable response for I agree, or I feel the same, or it's the same. It's bizarre, but it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's so usable, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
it's after we watched it a couple weeks ago, like Sarah and I started saying that to each other just randomly when we agreed. It's I completely agree with you on that. That's a great choice.
And I honestly think that like there are people who have never seen the interview who are familiar with same. Not necessarily that the quote came from the interview or anything, but just hey, same is a thing in our universe that we can say to one another. Like it's just bizarre. It's funny.
That's a great call. That's a great pick. What about you, Shai? What you got?
Yeah, I like the way Van went with like more like a practical use quote. That's the way I went as well. And just for me, it's are you honey dicking me? Like I think that's
honey dicking.
I think if we like go out, like this is another thing that I use a lot, especially within our group of friends, and just like whether it's gifts, same thing with the same but different. Just like so often a response to something in Discord or something, just a gif of one of those quotes, and like just really usable quote.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's probably the most iconic quote from the movie. When like, I mean, that's kind of like the movie. Like that's a phrase that the movie invented, right? Basically, like it's I don't know. When I think like that's one like a phrase that was really like it's kind of the opposite of what Van said, right? Van, the same is like kind of almost universal. Like it doesn't really necessarily have to do with the interview. It's like you kind of can get it. Whereas honey dick is like it should make you think of the interview specifically.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's kind of symbolic.
So I thought I was just ignorant. I mean, I know I'm ignorant, but I thought I was ignorant on this. No, that's ignorant.
You're ignorant.
You ignorant. But no, I thought honey pot was a real thing, and then
honey pot's a real thing. Absolutely.
Yeah,
okay.
Honey pot's a real thing.
Got it. And then they just took it to the next step with a honey dick.
Honey dick. Yeah. Because traditionally in our very sexist society, only women are honey potters, right?
Right. Their only goal.
There was no male equivalent up until the interview I'm aware of.
Yeah. Got it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's I think one of my favorite moments is in there when James Franco gets so upset because like Seth Rogen's explaining, he's like, "Oh yeah, you're just a honeypot, blah blah blah," and I bet he's over there as a honey dick just in case I'm gay, which I'm not. And then James Franco just busting, "You honey dicking?" It just cracks me
Can
up
we
so
can we do
much.
honorable mentions, or is this going to become another interview? Is it going to become another
Let
interview
me
episode?
let me get mine out
All
before
right,
you
all right.
honorable mention mine, and then we can each have a runner. All right.
Nice.
So for me, I've got to go with because of my love for Lord of the Rings. You can probably guess. I got to go with the Boromir stuff. You know
Yeah.
you're not my Sam. You're more like Boromir. And then I don't even know. As you know, I got really agitated last time about him not knowing who Boromir was. But such a Boromir thing to say. I mean, it's just a great quote, and I love the deeper Lord of the Rings cuts. You know, like I love that he worked that in there. So
Yeah.
that's got to be my pick. My runner up would definitely be. I got questions for that goat.
Yeah.
That always cracks me up.
Yeah.
I really love that one. Let's snake it back. Shy, what's your runner up? What's
It's
your
the
honor?
same scene up as your runner up. It's they hate us because they ain't us, and it's another
my
quote that I
God.
use all the time with friends.
That's so good.
Well, it's another one with with Van. You know,
Yeah. What does an
Yeah,
anus have to do with this at all?
like, well, no, just like same as the same.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
as the same. Like it's so applicable outside of interview related stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Van,
and
what's your honorable?
I like later on when they throw it back to Kim Jong, and he's like, "It's like they despise us because they are not us." It's like, he just drops the ball. They hate us because they ain't us.
So good.
Good.
Let me just look over all my quotes that I wrote down, and
Yeah.
I'll just pick one from here. I don't know why this is so funny to me. But there was one where they were trying to get into or what was he saying? Oh, like, you can't get into you can't get into North Korea. It's too difficult. Blah 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 blah. And he goes, "Remember that club I got us into? 3-month waiting list. I got us in one night." And that's like, well, it's not the same thing. And he goes, "Well, there were a lot of Asians there." I don't know why. It just like the way his crazy brain works just cracks me up every single time.
All right, I
Too
am going to
much.
move us on. It was good. I mean, we could just recite the entire interview here for the rest of the podcast, and that might be fun. But we promised Boba Fett to people. If you want more interview nonsense from us, episode 108 of the Focus Target podcast is on YouTube for your viewing pleasure. So, final chance in case you skipped or didn't listen to me before. Spoiler warning from here on out. We're going to be going deep on Book of Boba Fett, probably on The Mandalorian, all kinds of spoilers coming. So if you haven't watched that, please go ahead and do that now. Or if you don't care about spoilers, that's fine. Just don't hold it against us because we'd be spoiling it up in here. All right. So 7 episodes, Book of Boba Fett. It was obviously a spin-off of The Mandalorian to start, and then kind of became Mandalorian season 2.5 about halfway through, where we had essentially back-to-back episodes of pure Mandalorian stuff with like one of them Boba Fett wasn't even in.
Yeah.
Like what'd you think about that? I want to start with that because I feel like that's one of the big things that people talked about with this particular show was that like it's called Book of Boba Fett and like yet we definitely got some Mandalorian in there. What was your thoughts? Let's spin it to Shy first this time. Shy, what do you got?
Well, because he wasn't, and I feel like that episode, because that was episode 5, right?
Yes, episode 5 was the return of the Mandalorian.
I think talking to people about the show, so almost universally their favorite episode is episode 5, and it's not a good sign if your favorite episode of a show doesn't include the main character of the show.
Yeah, that was the one where Boba Fett was not in it.
Yeah. So I think I have as far as personal opinion, I don't know that it bothered me how the season ended. Like I don't know like I guess that was your question, right? Specifically, like our thoughts about how.
Well, what did you not about how it ended necessarily, but just like what were your thoughts about so much of the series being devoted to Mando story rather than Boba Fett?
It didn't bother me.
Did you like it? You enjoyed it?
Yeah, I was glad. I was pleasantly surprised when Mandalorian and Grogu showed back up. I think that the way season 2 ended, they really left it in a way that I wasn't sure. Honestly, I wasn't sure we'd ever see Grogu again.
Yeah,
like I figured we might see Mando again. They really have left a lot open of him like going back to his home planet and like there's a whole story arc they can pursue. But as far as Grogu, I'm like, they just sent him off with Luke, and they probably spent bucket load of money to try to CG Luke's face on this person. So like they're not going to want to dump that kind of money or tech again. Well, color us surprised. They're like, let's do like 2 full episodes of fake CG Luke.
Looked a lot better this time, though. You got to admit, like, it wasn't
look,
so weird.
It did look better, and we're probably digging too much of the weeds right now. The voice was offsetting, I feel like, but yeah, I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, what about you, Van? What'd you think about the Mando's return?
Yeah, I enjoyed the episodes, but I did think it was odd because I don't think I've ever watched a series where an episode had nothing to do with the series you were watching. And I'm just wondering why they took the creative license to do that. I get how it ended up with, I get how it culminated into the ending and how he had to be there in order for them to have this fantastic ending that they did, that I'm sure we'll talk about. But in all the other previous ones, like specifically even Boba Fett, like we see him show up in Mandalorian, the actual series Mandalorian, and then he gets his own spin-off where the first 4 episodes are how he ended up in the Mandalorian.
Right.
So then it's like, okay, so it's just the timelines are super funky. And then it's like, okay, well, if you devoted 4 episodes to show how he ends up in the Mandalorian, like, couldn't you just Mandalorian season 3 show how he ended up into the Book of Boba Fett in the same kind of way or something like that? I don't know. I just thought it was really weird that thing right there, that juxtaposition between those, the thought process between how they delivered those 2 series of events. But it didn't bother me. I get it did bother me, but I didn't like dislike it for that. I thoroughly enjoyed the episode. I just thought it was weird for those reasons as described.
Yeah, I liked it myself. I think Mandalorian, what we've seen, I think what this kind of proves, because I think most people kind of had that take, was that like of the 2 Mandalorians, Mando is actually the much more interesting and likable, and like, Boba Fett had that heyday where like he was so mysterious, and he's kind of, I think part of what people liked about him was that he was this mysterious badass. And I think a lot of that mythos of him has been dispelled by getting to know him a lot better and seeing like what he was. And it's like he's not really that badass. He's just kind of like an old dude who, like, he's
And I
all
think,
right, but go ahead.
and I think the way they wrote him in as this character is not how, and I'm gonna do what I hate doing, but I'm gonna paint all Star Wars fans with a broad stroke. It's not how we actually thought of him in the past when he was in the original 3. Like, we thought of him, like you said, oh, he's a badass, he's ruthless, he's relentless, he's a killer, he's the most notorious bounty hunter in the galaxy. And all of a sudden it comes out and it's like, oh no, he has a heart, he thinks about things, he doesn't want to upset people. And it's just like, whenever your belief is completely uprooted like that, like, it's hard to cling on to and continue to enjoy.
Yeah, and well, he's definitely, and I mean, maybe it's deserved because of the way he went out in Return of the Jedi, but like he certainly doesn't. His reputation doesn't really seem to help him in this series at all.
Yeah.
Like, we're led to believe that, like, oh, this Boba Fett, like you said, everybody knows who he is. Well, nobody seems to really care. They're like, oh, okay. Well, guess what? Well, some petty crime lords actually think they're a lot better than you. So,
Yeah, we know you
you're
got
not
thrown into a Sarlacc pit and escaped, but we really don't care about
right.
you or that
Yeah.
you're that. Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah, it is kind of strange. I will say about the Luke and Grogu part, I definitely agree with Shy. I'm very wrong about the whole Luke Skywalker thing as well, because as I mentioned in a previous podcast, when in the second season of Mandalorian, when they were talking about, oh, some Jedi is going to come find Grogu, my wife was sure it was Luke Skywalker. I was like, no way, you're so
No
wrong.
way.
You're
Yeah.
out of your mind. And she was so
Yeah.
right. I had to eat that.
Yeah.
And like, again,
And let that
after
be a lesson to you about your
yeah,
wife, by the way,
yeah,
and opinions. And
she's almost always right, and I'm almost always wrong. That's kind of how it goes. Luckily, she still wants
you're
to
gonna
be
have a
with
good
me.
marriage. You're gonna have a happy life,
I
Smiley.
did. I I was right about marrying her, and that's good enough for her. But we when I got to the end of that, I felt the same way Shy did, right? I was sure we'd see Mando again, probably sooner rather than later. But Grogu was like, who knows? And Luke certainly seemed like a one-time cameo. So having basically a whole episode of Luke and Grogu doing training, like, that was awesome. That was an awesome episode. That
Yeah, it
was
was so
so
cool.
good. I was so interested in that, having Ahsoka come back and play a little cameo in there.
Oh
Like,
yeah. Uh-huh.
super good. And I love Rosario Dawson also because if you didn't recognize her, she was in Clerks 2, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. So it was cool to see her. Like I love her as Ahsoka. I think she has a great job as Ahsoka so far in the
So
limited we've had.
I can tell you, I knew for a fact that Grogu was going to come back, and
Yeah.
I knew for a fact that he was going to. Well, I mean, not that he
Oh,
was going to make a reappearance, but that he would actually choose Mando
oh,
and all that
when
stuff.
he was given the choice. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that
exactly.
was
And
pretty.
well, before that, even when they spent so long, him going back and giving his mentor, the Beskar, or I can't, I'm butchering her name, but the main
Yeah, I know.
um smithing woman in there and all that stuff, who's kind of like the head of the guild.
Yeah,
But when like they made like this
matriarch.
whole big old thing over like the chainmail that they were gonna make out of Beskar and all that stuff, and I'm like, if they're making all this hoopla to do about this thing, then for sure he's got to make a reappearance, and he has to come back once given the choices, between becoming a Jedi or otherwise.
Yeah, I hate to be cynical and bring real world into it, but like from a Disney perspective, like, are they really gonna let Grogu, who is kind of a
Right,
cat
and that's
cow
the
at this
other thing.
point, be
Yeah,
like, nah, he's gonna focus on his Jedi training and we're not gonna see him for
right. Just know he did good things.
really
The
like
Actually,
I just
no, I
couldn't.
do have another opinion, or I do have another thing, and I like how they tie this into official Star Wars canon,
Hmm,
in that he could not have accepted to become a Jedi because in episodes 7, 8, and 9, they're very clear that there are no more Jedi left in the galaxy, and that's why Rey gets all the powers of all the culmination of all the Jedi that ever existed. And
yeah.
had Yoda been a Jedi, then Rey would not be the last Jedi. So I also knew at that point I was like, he can't accept it because there are no such things as additional Jedi's post episode whatever it was.
That's true, but I mean, I think we've seen the way Grogu ages that it's like he's like 50 years old. He's still basically a baby. Like
Yeah,
even if he went the way of the Jedi, that doesn't mean even in 20 years he would even be a Jedi. He still might
yeah,
be
that's
like
true.
a
That's a good point.
child. So I
Yeah,
think they could have massaged that one, but I mean, I think it's a fair point.
He could have been
and
Um,
killed by
then
Kylo Ren. I mean, that's
I
what
mean,
the way I would have
that's what
spun it.
that's what
Like,
everybody thought when he first
yeah.
came out. They're like, when he leaves with Luke, everybody's like, "Does this mean Kylo Ren murdered him in the?" Everybody was losing their minds over that. I was like, "You really think that kind of thing's gonna happen off camera? Come on now." Um, but yeah, I think too that one of the things I really thought was an interesting bit of philosophy that they threw in there was to use a word that Van used earlier, which is a great word for this, a juxtaposition between the way, this is the way of the Mandalorians versus the way of the Jedi, and saying, like when he says, when he's talking with the matriarch, and she's like, Jedi have to let go of all attachments. They can't have anything. And Mando's like, that's like the opposite of what we believe, right? We believe in loyalty and solidarity and caring about each other. Which, let's get into that a little bit while we're here, right? Like they have this clan that's founded on loyalty and like they're like a family. But you took your helmet off. I guess you're dead to them and get the fuck out. Like what?
They're a cult, Smiley. That's how cults
Yeah, they
work.
are.
Cults are
You're right.
founded on like those minutia and those like
Things, yeah.
legalisms.
And
Yeah.
that's a great point. Let's be fair. I forgot about this, but that is what um what's that chick's Bo-Katan says in
Mhm.
the second season
that's
when he's
right.
like, "Why you guys don't wear your helmets?" And she's like, "Dude, you're with some like extreme weirdos out
Yeah,
there. Okay, most of us don't really give a shit about that." So
yeah.
yeah, that's fair. I'd forgotten about that.
So I have
They're
two
a
comments.
little bit wild,
Yeah.
but does seem a little bit. Anyway, go
And I
ahead.
agree completely because literally either if not that same episode, just one episode either later or earlier, he was challenged by one of his brothers to the death to get the dark saber.
Yeah,
So
that
it's
was
like you're this big family and you're supposed to love each other, and yet you're going to challenge him to the death to get your dark saber, or at least defeat him in combat. Whether that means killed or otherwise, I don't know. But
we actually do know it doesn't have to be killed because he claimed the dark saber by defeating Moff Gideon, but he didn't kill him.
oh, that's right,
Just
and he's still
win in
alive.
combat, right? It's like win
Yeah,
in
it's just
combat.
yeah.
Yeah, and I forgot my other point, so I'll defer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I broke you up there. That's my bad. Shy, any thoughts?
What are we talking about right now? There's lots of thoughts, but like, what
I
specifically is
remember,
our topic?
and then you can
All right.
gather your
Oh,
thoughts.
all right. Go ahead.
So you're talking about how you can't remove your helmet ever, otherwise you're dead to us or whatever. But then that's not the case though, because he says, "Oh, I removed my helmet twice," and she's like, "Oh, okay. Well, you're not dead to us. You just have to fulfill some type of thing to
Oh,
be
that's
welcomed back
right.
in."
Yeah, he had to go on a spirit quest, and
Yeah. So it's like, wait, I thought you were dead, but now it's like, have you ever removed your helmet, or has your helmet ever been removed from you? And it's like, no, blah blah blah. And she's like, "Oh, well, that really sucks. You should go on the spirit quest, and we'll get you back in." It's like, what?
Wait, was that like an end credit sequence at the end of the series?
No.
What do you
No,
mean?
it was during. It was the whole dialogue. I'll try to pull it up. And
that was like the
yeah.
last. That's like the last thing she said. He's like, "What can I do to make this right?" And she's like, "The only way that you can be absolved." She is like, "You have to go to the shrine below in the caves below."
All right. I do think. All right, sorry.
And
I do
he's
think I
like,
remember that now. Yeah.
like those were just like, how can that even? That's not even possible anymore. And she's like, "Well, tough titties,
Yeah.
figure it
Yeah.
out."
So we know what Mandalorian season 3 is going to involve.
Seems like it, right?
A cult restored.
Well, I saw too. It was funny, like when he first makes that that ship, he first custom makes the old Naboo fighter. After that episode came out,
Yeah.
I saw a meme that had like Grogu photoshopped into the little bubble, and they're like, "Only a matter of time before we seen this scene." And then, of course, episode 7,
Literally.
there it is.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
that is incredible.
Yeah. Another funny side note before I forget. My daughter thinks I am like the biggest Mandalorian fan that ever existed. And the reason being is because she confuses the VGK symbol with the Mandalorian helmet.
Oh,
It looks like
you
it.
got a
Like it.
Mando hat. I love
So
it.
she thinks I got a Mando hat, Mando sweats, Mando sticker on the back of my car, Mando like everything.
I love Mandalorian.
Yeah, exactly. It cracks me up all the time. So anytime like VGK's on or whatever, she's like, "Oh, Mandalorian's on." Like when I'm watching hockey or whatever, "Oh, I like the Mandalorian team." It just cracks me up, dude.
Dude, you should approach Vegas with some cross marketing there. I feel like they
Yeah,
might
right.
have something.
She sees the goalie take the helmet off. She's like, "He's out of the cult."
Get him out of the team. Get him off the team. You gotta go on a quest if he wants to get back in net.
Oh my god, that would be awesome if like Leonard did like a helmet, like a freaking Mandalorian helmet.
That would be amazing.
Someone, was it a Drieger who used to have like Grogu on his helmet? I think when he played for Florida, I think he did at one point.
That's cool.
But yeah.
All right, Shai. I feel like you haven't had many thoughts lately. Let's hear it. What do you got? And you can go anywhere you want.
Any
direction.
thoughts lately? Wow. Rude.
Well, just,
much?
I just mean like I feel like Van and I have kind of been going
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
We kind of took over this.
Are we just?
You have
podcast.
had
Yeah. Are we just
Whatever
free
you
flowing?
want-
Like
whatever you
I don't
want
know. Like there's just
Whatever
so
you
much to talk about. There's so much to talk about this season, and I think like, I just want to talk about a couple of my high. So right. My feelings about the show is I think the middle was the best, and not specifically because of Mandalorian either. I think that in my mind the best moments of the season were in the middle. I thought the beginning I was all right, the first episode or two, but it was like we used to talk about the Mandalorian being slow, and Boba Fett's like the whole like meme turn it up to 11. Boba Fett's like let's turn it down to 0.5 or like -11. Like we'll make it slower than the Mandalorian. And it was interesting, but it was really slow. And then the ending, I thought, just kind of like got ridiculous, and it was just like too over the top, and it was like you're doing too much. But I really liked the Marshall's subplot in the Book of Boba Fett, and I do like the little tease at the end of the season.
Marshall.
What act is that? Is he a well-known actor? He looks so much like Josh Brolin almost to me to a certain extent, but I know that's not him. Like you guys don't recognize him from anything, right? But like. I just really I want to see more of the Marshall. I really liked his scenes. I really thought Cad Bane was a really cool villain, and I don't as much as I like Rancors, and I love the like Witches of Dathomir callback and the whole like all of that because they mentioned it in one of the episodes. They mentioned they said that the witches from Dathomir even rode these into battle, and he's like I will learn how to do that or something.
Bringing Courtship of Princess Leia back into canon.
Yeah,
bit,
it just. I mean, the problem is it just got over the top in that last episode. I don't think they handled the whole Rancor riding thing well. I mean, made it for a cute scene where Grogu falls asleep next to the Rancor and so cutesy. But I really thought like that scene between Cad Bane and Boba Fett was probably like in my mind the climax of of that last episode, and all of the like shooting and armies and thugs, and spice merchants was just like I don't know. for the kids or something. I think they could have kept it more like a Western, like it felt like a Western and like scaled back like that. But
So his name is Timothy Oliphant. I don't
yes,
recognize it.
I
I'm just
recognize
not
that
very good
name.
at movies.
What
Gotcha.
else has he been in? I do recognize that name.
Jeez. According to his IMDb, he's been in like a million things.
He was in Lord of the Rings, right? The oily fonts. I didn't
Deadwood.
realize.
That's not. That's not the same Elephant.
What?
Deadwood.
It's an elephant. Oh dear God!
It's just him walking.
This is Lord of the Rings.
He was under. He had a lot of makeup on that in that scene.
Damages, Justified. Do you know any of these? The Grinder. Once Upon a Time in
He was
Hollywood.
in Die Hard. I want to see. Wonder what he played in Die Hard.
Fargo.
Probably
Well,
a kid.
we're off the
Probably
rails.
a
But
little kid. Die Hard. Well, that was from like the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's not. I don't think he's super young. But
Still like 40 years ago.
all right.
Let's talk about the villain because you mentioned him.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about that.
I want the Western.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Cad Bane.
Cad Bane, is that his name?
Yep.
Yeah, he was he was in Clone Wars, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't know that, and apparently I need to watch that. That's the animated one, right?
Yeah,
it's one of them. There's two animated ones.
Yeah,
got it. I thought he was probably, and I don't know why, but like, do you guys believe in love at first sight? Like, I thought he was like the coolest, scariest villain I've ever seen in like any movie ever. Really? And I was like, holy crap, this guy is like badass, scary, freaking like a lot of times other villains are just like over the top or hokey and all this stuff, and I was like, this guy's a real villain. Like, he is a true freaking villain.
I mean, that's certainly how they introduced him, and I mean, if his whole kind of deal was that like he kind of felt like he supplanted Boba Fett, right? Like when Boba Fett fell into that Rancor pit, now Cad Bane's the most notorious bounty hunter in the galaxy, and I think based on what you're saying that you kind of feel that, right? Like maybe you feel like that's kind of what Boba Fett's supposed to be. The guy that when he shows up and starts talking, you're like, oh shit, shit's about to get real.
Yeah, like, there you go.
That's what it means to have a reputation as the most notorious bounty hunter, I would think. So I mean, obviously that's what they were going for, and I think they did a good job. What do you think of the scene that he's introduced here, where he just shows up?
Oh, dude, just slowly walks into freaking Pleasant Town or Friendly Town or whatever they renamed it, Freedom Town,
and blasts a character that you like. As Shai said, he's really interested in this character. Like he wants to see more from him, and he's like, "Bam, you're done for the series."
But yeah, I thought just acting, voice, makeup, everything was just spot on. I was like, damn, that is badass. They did a good job. Well, I was wondering if it was akin to like what people felt of Darth Vader when like the original Star Wars came out, because he was seen as like the ultimate villain, like beard, and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, much bigger than the movie. Go ahead.
It reminded me of Darth Maul, because I think he's the best Star Wars villain since Darth Maul. Because Darth Maul, maybe he didn't talk, so like because Cad Bane's voice is so good, right? But like, but Darth Maul was. I feel like Darth Maul was a really good Star Wars villain, and the fact that he kills Qui-Gon, I think really cemented that. I mean, it was
so far that we know.
Until we get the book of Qui-Gon Jinn.
Cauterize the wound,
dude,
and then medevac.
If Qui-Gon Jinn comes back, I'm out.
I love Qui-Gon Jinn. I'm put him as Disney. That's all I'm saying.
He's been in a bacta tank this whole time, guys. They've established the bacta tank now and how it's miraculous.
He was really in the bacta tank at the end of the episode. It was
there's an automat like a droid surgeon who's working on Qui-Gon for 50 years. Like.
Did you guys? Sorry to take us a little bit off topic. Did you guys see the Marvel What If show? It's on Disney Plus. It's basically it's like an animated series that like takes points in the MCU. It says what if something had happened differently, and kind of like extrapolates what might have gone down. And like I think that would be really fun in Star Wars to have something like that. Like what if what if Obi-Wan had been killed by Darth Maul instead of Qui-Gon Jinn? Right? What if, like there's a bunch of points in Star Wars where you can say, what if something a little different? What if Han Solo didn't come back at the end of episode 4? Stuff like that. Like I think you could really have some meat there. And like, I hope since it's both under Disney. Like I hope that one day we get like a Star Wars What If, because I think that could be fun. Sorry, that's a little bit off topic. I want to talk about the real climax of this series, the real like height of excitement, which
There we
was
go. It's not going to be the end at all.
the speeder chase
There you go.
between the
There it is.
administrator and the little tech dudes, right? Didn't that just have your heart pumping? Episode 3? No, you guys don't even remember it.
I remember it. It's that memorable.
I don't know how you can't, because to me, I've never seen anything like it before. I think it was the slowest high speed chase that has ever been filmed. Like,
Wait,
literally,
are you talking about
like
the
like the
speeder and the train scene, or
no, I'm talking about when the little dorky ass administrator Twilight guy.
Like the space merchants or the spice merchants.
No, the mayor's assistant.
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
In the town.
Who
Yes.
tries to race. Like, that was insanely stupid. Like, there's people walking faster
okay,
than they're
yeah, that's
running
interesting.
through. Like there's just
So
no.
this is one of the things you didn't like. We can
No,
chalk it up into that category.
this is I was being facetious about,
Got
like,
it. Right. Okay.
sorry,
That's why you threw us off, because you're usually so serious about
it's
everything.
hard.
Yeah.
It's hard sometimes to catch sarcasm on the internet. Listen, like, that was terrible. That was the
Yeah.
worst scene in anything I think I've ever seen. Like, it was just so slow. Like, it didn't feel like there was any feeling of speed whatsoever. And we're talking about coming from a legacy of one of the highest speed chases for its time, I feel like, which was the speeder bikes on Endor in Return of the Jedi.
Oh, so
Like,
good.
that's like
Revolutionary footage.
30 years
Yeah.
ago. And like, these dudes are puttering down the street like it's insanity to me. Like, I was like, who thought, like, was it meant, like, was this supposed to be like an Anchorman thing? Where like it's supposed to be funny because it's so bad?
Right.
I didn't get that. I got, like, it felt like, I don't know. I was just baffled. Like, I'm watching it and I'm like, what is this? We have a bunch of like weird, like, techno teenagers who we don't care about chasing some weird administrator who doesn't feel like he belongs in the Star Wars universe. Like, did you get the feeling about that? Like, I felt like that dude, like, just didn't feel like he fit. You know, like he felt like he was like a character cosplaying a Star Wars character, and like didn't actually, like,
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like, he just,
Yeah,
like,
I
his
know, I
voice,
do.
like, the way he talked didn't feel like
Yeah,
this
I
new
completely
universe.
do.
It's like nobody else
Yeah.
talks like that in the universe. Like, he
Right.
seemed like I don't know. It was
And he was
really
just so bizarre. He was so out there. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't
like that whole
real fluid with him.
It's like their C3PO. It's like he's like their C3PO
Well, it's like the
replacement.
Jar Jar.
Very like
Oh,
formal,
yeah.
very like well spoken, flowery, but like
Oh, I see what
but
you're
C3PO was a droid and it was kind of more comical, whereas him, he's just unlikable, I think, is the problem. And like no one likes him. And the speeder stuff, the whole like techno punks or whatever,
Yeah.
that I'm all for diversity in media, and I think it's super important that more people of different races and sexes are getting more ability to, like, you know, they're getting more spotlights in Hollywood, getting more major leading roles. Like, that's super important. But when you try to shoehorn people into parts in series and movies that are super obvious, so that like you have this group that's not very impactful, and the leads are a young white woman and a black man, like it feels like they're just like, oh, diversity, like, here, we've got a woman and a black man. We'll like are now, yeah, and like, and they could have done a much better job with that and made it less, made it more subtle. But
So we we had in our thing here to talk about things you didn't like, and I literally had penciled down the cyberpunk kids, because like I didn't like the whole thing. I didn't like them being a part of it. It seemed like it was thrown at the last minute to maybe grasp a younger audience, but they already had a young audience, so I don't know why they were doing it either, and I was trying to figure that out. I just didn't like it at all. I didn't like the characters, or I didn't care for the characters, and it always seemed misplaced in this giant desert world where you have moisture farms. All of a sudden, you got the cyberpunk crew with a bunch of different colored Vespas and all these bright stuff, and it was just super weird. Like, they could have left it at the doctor, right? Because the cyberpunk dude, the doctor, was the one who helped, heal what's her name, sniper chick,
Fennec Shan.
yeah, Fennec. So, like, I get why he had to be in there, but then like the rest of his crew and all the friends, not that they were necessarily friends and all that stuff, but like, I don't know, it was really awkward and I didn't like it. It was,
Yeah.
yeah,
Again, just like the guy, didn't really seem to fit in the
right.
setting, and also to me, didn't make a lot of sense, like why they like he's just like, well, now you work for me, and they're like, okay, like,
Yeah. Yeah. And
okay,
I
I
think
get
it was because
that.
like in the beginning, it was like it was the, you know, the vulnerable young people just trying to pay rent, and then it was the evil land slumlord trying to raise their rent, and that's how they were like introduced, right?
Right.
And then it was, oh, you need a job, well, you can come work for me. And it's like, how much pigeonholing are you gonna do with this group of people?
Yeah.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, that's the part about it I didn't. That was, I mean, and I didn't hate it. It's not like it ruined the show for me or anything.
I hated it.
I was just
It
like,
didn't ruin the show for me, but I can hate it.
Since we're kind of free roaming right now, and not a negative, but just something I think that's an interesting topic that I was like, whoa, like the whole thing where he had Fennec Shan's innards replaced by machine parts to save her life, but like I don't know, like if you were dying, and like let's say we're out in the field. And I don't know, like if we come like, right, yeah, walking down the street, Smiley gets shot in the gut by some gang, and I'm like dragging him to some like cybernetic shop, and like they replace 80% of your body with machine parts. Now you wake up the next day and like, you know, like how do you feel about that? Like, okay, I'm alive, but who am I anymore? Like even like, you know, like I'm not like, am I
I'm more
me?
machine now than man?
I mean, I think that's like that's the thing, right? You can. I think that's that's a generalization. I think, but like I think it does bring up interesting topics of like, are you glad to be alive? Like, what does that even mean? Like, obviously, as Disney, they can't deal with the body horror of like, you know, who knows like what that did to her body and how she feels and the pain she's in and you know whatever. But
I mean, listen, for the record, if it's me, if you have a chance to save my life with
Oh, we're
cybernetic,
doing it. Don't worry. And I'll take your thank you later.
yeah, and like,
Yeah.
listen, I can make the decision afterwards if it's like I don't want to live like this. Let's pull the plug.
Yeah.
Okay, like let me choose that. Don't
You
assume.
wouldn't.
Don't
You would
assume.
literally enter every room during Lollapaloozas going, oh, it's the Juggernaut every single time. I guarantee you.
Just with like a flamethrower arm. What's happening here?
Like your raincoat. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is what I would be. Yeah, listen, you can find a lot
All
of
right.
life
All right.
even after you think you're gonna die. Like
All right.
I think you try to keep people alive, and you know.
Yeah, and maybe that's not my question is whether he should have done it. Just the fact that like she is and significantly changed afterwards, and it's like there was that moment where she's like, "What did you do to me?" or something. But then like no mention of it again, you know, and like it's crazy to me. That's huge. Like that's such a huge thing. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it certainly seems like if they continue with her character in other places, and we get a little bit more of a more time with her, perhaps I think that would be an interest. They certainly could have a story arc there, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like, okay, maybe in this show we didn't really get into it, but maybe behind the scenes she's, you know, maybe is struggling in certain ways. I mean, that could be an interesting story, I think. Which kind of leads us, I mean, and we can keep doing things you like, things you didn't like. We don't have to transition, but that does lead us naturally a little bit to thoughts on the future of the Star Wars cinematic universe, or whatever you want to call it. Like, um, you know, like, so obviously we talked about how this sets up Mando, right? Like, do
Yeah.
you? But my first question anyway, is do you want to see more from Boba Fett? Like, was the time we had with Boba Fett building his crime empire on Tatooine interesting enough that you want to come back and see a book of Boba Fett 2 that continues his story? Or are you more like, let's just get back to Mando and we'll know Boba Fett's doing his thing out here in case we come across him? Like, would you rather see him as as you kind of alluded to, Shy, a side character or a side story in a future series or movie rather than a true series of his own? If you could choose. We'll start with Shy again, because sorry, Shy. Go to you.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I think I'd rather see him as a side character. Like I'd be much more interested in seeing a Marshall series with Boba Fett like stepping in and out. Like and I think Van hit the nail on the head, like when he talked about Cad Bane and how Cad Bane was like mysterious and interesting. And I think that it just goes to show when you take a bounty hunter that's like if they made a show, the Book of Cad Bane, and now Cad Bane's trying to like become an administrator of a company and like an organization, like it's not that exciting. We've seen that now. It's not that exciting of a topic. Like, move on.
That is a
Bring
very good metaphor,
awesome
like
take.
or analogy. That was
yeah,
awesome.
let Boba Fett come in and be a badass. Maybe he's riding his Rancor. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, you could do some cool stuff, but like, I don't think I want to see a season two.
I want to
The
see,
book
I
of
want to
Cad
see,
Bane, and he's
I want to
he's
see
an
a short.
actuary.
I want to see a short where like he's got like a crutch or something, like he's got like like a sling from where he was stabbed. He's like, I've given up the bounty hunter life. I'm here to talk to you about mortgages. Really, the housing market here.
Let me tell you about Beskar. Do you have any investments in Beskar?
he like opens his little cloak, and instead of a blaster, he's got like.
Let's bring it back.
I think that'd make a great short. That'd be funny.
A what if, you might say.
A what if? Yeah. What if Cad Bane had taken a different path in life? Hmm.
Oh my god.
See, they got man. They could write that for years. I feel like
Yeah.
if it was well done. Um,
Yeah,
what
let
about
me
you?
answer your
Yeah,
yeah,
please.
answer your question. I want to see more Boba Fett only for the fact, and this is that I was ironically let down with the first season. So there's still more in that nut to crack, and I don't think they've scratched the surface because I don't know what direction Disney's going to take it. I mean, I think he is going to team up with a Marshall, which is a pretty badass team up. I don't think they're going to do a Marshall only spinoff, but like I think he's going to team up with Boba Fett in some type of adventure in the future. Otherwise, well, I guess they could have showed him in the back to tank at the end being worked on by the doctor just to say, hey, look, he's alive, everybody. But I think they really said it to say, like, hey, this is what you have to expect in Boba Fett series 2, season 2, that he's going to be in that. The Marshall's going to be involved in it a lot more. Because think about it, he has this new empire now. What does an empire need more than anything? Law and order. You got the Marshal right there. You got the king on his throne.
Especially
You got your Fennec Fox.
especially the way Boba Fett wants to do it, allegedly, with through respect and things like that. Like, you're
God,
right.
that pisses me off, man.
Hmm.
Like we saw a glimpse. Okay, so we did see a glimpse of Boba Fett of old, and it was when whether we believed that he believed the biker gang killed off all the Sand people or not. Like he got into Slave One, or Boba Fett's ship as it's called now. He got into Boba Fett's ship and literally just gunned down all the bikers relentlessly. And we're like, okay, that's Boba Fett. That's the Boba Fett that we know of, and then just flew back like nothing ever happened, even though after saying that he was going to rule with respect and all that stuff. So like we're getting flashes of who we believe Boba Fett to be, and then we get all of this other crap that happens at the end.
That was a very odd scene. It felt very cold blooded compared to the rest of the series.
Yeah,
and also, we need
100%.
we need to pause for a second. Is literally Boba Fett's ship now called Boba Fett ship?
So it's still called Slave One. That comes from the Lego Star Wars release that they changed the title of Slave One to Boba Fett's ship now on the Lego boxing from Slave One. It is now just called Boba Fett's ship. So I don't know how far they're taking it. I don't know if they've actually gone back to Slave One. You could tell, I mean, they don't mention it anywhere in the series. So I don't know what it's officially known as anymore, but they did change it on the packaging from Slave One, took it off and called it Boba Fett's ship.
Yeah,
Wow.
in the series, he only ever refers to it as my ship, your ship. That's it's always referred to as a possessive, never by name. In the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah,
So,
Disney.
that
How
which
weird.
will.
How weird. I don't know. Yeah.
Yep, that's a philosophical conversation for another podcast.
Yes, there's some meat there. That's a dangerous one, but I think we can get into it. Um,
I feel like we're pretty good about tiptoeing on those eggshells.
I don't feel like I need another Book of Boba Fett. I mean, if they have somewhere to take it, that's fine. But I feel like we already saw with the Mandalorian what the Mandalorians like what's the word I'm thinking of? Like blueprint is like Mando goes around and makes a bunch of friends in individual episodes, and then at the end he calls them all together to help him out with some shit. Right? That's what happened in the first season. That's what happened in the second season. Like I feel like to me this is more of a setup play where it's like, if they have another story to tell, maybe they will do a Book of Boba Fett too. But I think it's more likely that we will see the Marshal and Boba Fett and Fennec Shar and some of these other characters pop up as either in future Mandalorian episodes or in other spin-offs, or like I wonder if they're not trying to take it again a Marvel direction and kind of build a kind of Avengers Assemble type of thing in a movie where like you have all these backstories building up, and then whatever the next kind of in time
Hmm.
movie is, you get some of these people pulled in, and it's like now their backstory, just like
But this is before 789, right?
this
It's
was
right after
before 7.
6.
Yeah, this is believe Mandalorian was set to be 6 years after
I think that
the
sounds right.
Return of the Jedi. I believe was Mando season 1 was said to be 5 or 6 years after ROJ. So yeah, but I mean we don't know when the next. No, but nothing that I've seen has been announced as far as the next movie. There's rumors that there is another movie trilogy coming for Star Wars, but it's not been said like when who's in it, where is it in the timeline. I haven't heard anything concrete about that. There's a lot of speculation.
I bet Tom Holland will be in it.
That'd be cool. Into the
He's
into
in
the
everything. He's
spider.
in everything now. He's Spider-Man.
He is in
He's
everything.
Nathan Drake. He's he's the new Chris Pratt basically.
Yeah, Tom Holland, he's so hot right now.
All right, Mugatu. Anything you want to talk about? I mean, we talked about the reception a little bit, the controversy. I mean, basically, a lot of the things that we said is what
Yeah.
people complained about a little
It's
bit.
not
but
been received well. I mean, I think can we say that? Really? I
It
mean, I guess
hasn't.
why?
No,
That's
I think
what I keep
I think
hearing.
that's fair.
Yeah, until like the last 3 episodes, and then like all of a sudden people were like, "Oh, Grogu's back! Yeah, let's Mandalorian season 2.5."
was interesting.
Grogu's one of the best characters ever in like any series. I love Grogu.
They did such a great job with him too to make him have that same puppety feel that you
Yes.
had where like he
Yeah.
walks, he's like
He's not
Yeah.
very smooth. Yeah.
it's
And he's
just making very
mischievous, just like his race is expected to be, and all that stuff. Yeah, it's funny.
"Oh, cannot get your ship out." People forget how much of a little bitch Yoda was in Empire Strikes
Dude,
Back.
he was he was a punk.
Yeah.
He's all sitting there eating Luke's food and they're just throwing the apples and crap.
I to go completely off the rails here, I loved that scene so much though. Like I love the subtlety of where he's like, "Oh, great warrior, wars not make one great," and Luke's like, "Fuck you!" Like it's like, dude, like listen to the wisdom. It's there. Like it's
Yeah.
like I love how they did that. How they made it like if you're really paying attention or on a rewatch,
Mhm.
it's so obvious that this is not just a little critter. But
Yeah.
in the moment, you're just like focusing
Yeah.
on the nonsense he's pulling. Like that's a masterful scene. One of the reasons that movie's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Shy, sorry, I cut you off. Were you about to say something?
No, I mean I want to talk about the original trilogy again now because like you just talked about like how like that whole scene is like this hot-tempered young man Luke who thinks he knows the shit.
Everything.
Like he thinks I'm
Yeah.
gonna go off to war. I'm gonna become a famous pilot. I'm gonna save the galaxy, and like Yoda is teaching him like that's not. Honestly, like even this war is almost inconsequential in like terms of like the universe itself. Like I mean, like the idea of a Jedi, and I think that's what's like where our culture. I think as far as like I understand a Jedi. I was talking to a coworker the other day about this, but just like growing up, I thought of Jedis as warriors, and I think because I wanted to, because as a young boy, you want like young boys can be interested in weapons and fighting and
Lightsaber
wars
fight.
and like and like they're badasses, and I think that like it was hard sometimes to watch like Obi-Wan or somebody's like it's like restraining from the violence or whatever, and
Yeah.
like I think as you get older though, you see like really Jedi are priests. They're like they're
just
like
order.
sages, and they have a weapon, but it's not really to be used in the end. And I think I don't know, like
I think it's a great quote that people forget about and that is often overlooked. That like when Yo's like a Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. And
Mhm.
Luke argues, but why can't I just? He's like, no, there's no why, right? Like you forget about that because you're right. Like as a kid too, I was the same way. Like you think of a Jedi, I was like, I'm gonna take up my lightsaber and go out and cut down some Darth Vaders out there. You know what I'm saying? Like it's crazy to think about. Like that's not what they preach, right?
Yeah.
That it's we could certainly do maybe. I mean, we've done enough episodes on this. I don't think we can get away with that, but it might be an interesting discussion to have about just the Jedi and the Force and like the approaches to the Force, the light side versus dark side. Like I think there's actually a lot there to discuss. If that's something that is interest of
You know,
to you guys.
what we could do is potentially, it might be a multi-episode thing, but just kind of like how we could pick topics we love and how our views of them have changed as we've gotten older. I think that'd be interesting because I think perspectives definitely change.
I thought you were saying we should do multiple episodes on Star Wars, and I was like, I just don't know that we can do that.
I just told you, Shy, that we're not doing that again.
I don't
We'll
think
be
we
80
can
by the
fill,
time we're done.
I don't think we can
Yeah.
fill multiple
I
episodes.
don't think we can
Star
fill.
Wars
Oh my gosh.
without it. I don't know how we get that
We'll
done.
call them the director's cut of the original episodes we did.
So our audience is getting a huge like behind the scenes look at our discussions previously on these things.
The problem is we only have one listener, and that's Sarah, and she's kind of done with Star
Well,
Wars.
apparently we have like 440 according to
She's,
our
you know,
or it's Sarah listening 440 times.
well,
so.
she's not gonna listen to this one, I don't think, because she didn't watch Book of Boba Fett with me. She's Star Wars.
Got it.
It's just too. I mean, I get it, right? There's between Marvel and Star Wars is a new series every couple weeks, and it's hard to keep up on all this stuff. All right,
All right,
guys.
so did you answer? Did you answer your question
What was my question?
about seeing a second Boba Fett and
No,
Mando and
yeah, I did.
spinoffs? And
I
He did,
did. Remember,
okay.
I think I'd like to see him show up elsewhere. But
Got
like if they made a season 2, I'd probably watch it. Like I didn't hate it. I didn't have as bad of a reception as maybe some people did. I tend to not be as critical. Like I don't feel like every series has to be groundbreaking and do something different and hit every single checkbox that critics seem to think it needs to. Like I enjoyed it. It was cool. It gave us a cool look into a little bit of a different aspect of the Star Wars universe. Some of it was stupid, like I said, like the chase, like the whole administrator, he would have been great for one episode. Like he should have been fed
Right.
to the Rancor the first time he showed up,
Yeah,
and
undoubtedly.
that would have been enough of him. That would have been
Right.
funny, and it would have been like, get that guy
Yeah.
out of here. Like but for the most part, I don't have. I'm an easy please. I think on a lot of these shows. Most of these shows I watch and I just like them. I'm like, yeah, that's good. All right. What about you? Well, I mean, I guess that's a good segue for you guys. Just kind of, what was your final? Give it a grade. Grade it for me, or give it a 1 to 10 on the scale of the rest of the Star Wars stuff you've watched. Where do you rank it? Kind of, with 5 being 10 being the best Star Wars content you've ever seen, and 0 being it's an
Episode 1.
abomination. No,
Okay.
like, we've talked about that. Episode 2 maybe, but not episode
Fine,
1.
episode 9.
See,
Yeah,
I
episode 2. That's true. That's a good point.
gotta see.
Let's not go back there.
9 once. Yeah, we gotta.
Let's not go back.
We're going deep. We're going deep. Give me a ranking.
I would say
Man,
this. Oh,
oh, Shy. Yeah, let's
No,
try.
it's Shy. Take it away.
I'd say
Take it
6.5.
Okay,
Mm.
Van.
Yeah, I was hovering around 5 also. 6 or 5. It's one of the least favorite series. But again, like I said, there's more there, or at least maybe I just want there to be more there. And I didn't get to see it this season, so I want to see another season. I was let down.
I'll give it a 7 just because I did not expect to get this much Luke Skywalker content.
That is so awesome.
Like have you guys seen the theory on, not the theory, but like the suggestion on the internet that they should have Sebastian Stan play a younger Luke Skywalker
I
because
don't know who that is.
I can
it's
see
a
that.
dude who he's in a bunch of the Marvel movies and other stuff, but
The Winter
like,
Soldier.
he kind of looks like it. Like they
Yeah.
showed a picture of him, like, and it was like you could see it where it's like I think he's a
Oh,
great
I can see it.
I think he does a great job in the movies I've seen him in.
Yeah.
And it's like I would be there for it. If you made me, like, I don't
Dang, I can see it.
time. I don't care if it's like in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, if it's after Return, like give me more fucking Luke Skywalker content.
Yeah.
And like have Mark Hamill be involved, because like I love that Mark Hamill's involved in all this and seems to be down with having other people portray the role. Like I'd be there for that. Like
Yeah.
that would be amazing. So the fact that we've gotten as much Luke Skywalker content as we have, I think is pretty cool. Like I'm a fan of Luke Skywalker. I mean, it's like a hero growing.
I don't like
And
the.
Mark Hamill's so cool. The CGI.
I don't like
You
what
didn't
they're
think
doing
it was
because
that
you're
much
right.
better?
It was better. The visuals were better. It
Yeah.
still was a little bit off, and the voice just I was like, I think it was I don't know if it was the mouth and the voice or just
Maybe
his
that's
how
probably what it was, because
I
I
don't.
think it was actually Mark Hamill who did the voice, but
Oh,
I heard
not.
it
no
was I heard it
way.
was computer generated. I heard that they actually had a
Oh,
computer synthesize his voice.
oh, really? I didn't hear that, but okay.
Yeah.
Maybe. Jeez, that's crazy. I know he was involved with it. Like he was
Uh,
still credited with the role.
uh.
Um, but
Oh, look, you're not alone. Literally, the headline is "Here's why Luke Skywalker's voice sounded strange in the Book of Boba Fett." And I'm not going to read this article live for everybody, but there's something there to it. So
you'd have to read through the life story of the articleer before they actually gave you the goods.
yeah, because that's
Yeah,
how typically
yeah.
blogs are. And then at the very bottom, they say why.
Because you're older now, and he sounds different when you were
Hey,
a kid. Uh,
can I talk about something? Otherwise, I'll be
please.
pissed off that we didn't talk about it. I know we're running out of time here.
Oh,
What did you all think about those giant droidicas? I don't know what else to call them.
Droideka.
And their inability to hit their targets. Like that bothered me to no end. Even slow moving carriage carrying like complete inability to hit their
They
target.
went to the stormtrooper training school, so that's
Right, but like did they
perfect.
have to bring that back again? Like
The
I know
scene
Star Wars is notorious.
the scene when they show up and they're behind that little speeder and that droidica's right there, I'm like, they're dead. I'm like, I don't know
Yeah.
what. And then it starts like shooting the side of the speeder, and the speeder doesn't blow up. They have these massive like starship cannons, and they're not like blowing up the speeder. They're just, I don't know, man. That was so ridiculous. Like, I don't.
Yeah. Like they
You
weren't
know,
scary towards the end. They were just comical.
Well,
30
that's
minutes of shooting and
yeah.
never hitting a single thing.
And I think that's why the Rancor coming in felt like low impact, right? It wasn't like they were even scary
Right.
at all. So it was like the Rancor
That's a good
also
point.
didn't feel like it was impactful because it was
Yeah,
killing.
what are
these
you
things
solving
that
for?
weren't killing anything. I mean,
There's no threat here. Right.
you know what bothered me about it initially is like if there's these crazy giant shielded super droids, like why didn't we see any? Like why is nobody using that in the sequel movies? Right? Like where are those? Like it's kind of like Droidicas. Like that was kind of the argument in the prequels. It's like if we have these badass droid armies, like why are we using stormtroopers that can't hit anything anyway later on, right? But like maybe that's the point, right? Maybe it's because they suck so bad. It's like, man, these are really expensive to produce and they're really not very effective. So like I don't know. I agree. I think that's always the Hollywood gunfights sometimes can really be immersion breaking when you're like, dude, like, come on. Like you gotta have some weight, right? I mean, I think that's what appealed to people, especially early on in Game of Thrones, right? Is that like when you have stakes, when you're watching and you don't know
Right.
if a character is going to live or die, like because they actually could
Right.
die in a battle scene. Like that's why it's so intense because you're like, oh my god,
Right.
like what's going to happen to a character I care about? And like when you get into some of these shows, I feel like you don't really worry about that. And like they kind of surprised you with the Marshal when they shot him down, and yet in the end,
Right.
is he
yeah.
really gone? It doesn't seem so, right? So it just doesn't. You can pull that to a certain extent, but you get to a point where you just feel like there's no stakes, and then it's like the battle scenes, like you said. By the end of it, you didn't really care. It didn't feel like a real battle because those droids aren't hurting anybody. Like
Yeah.
nobody's getting hurt by them. So where's the
Even the Vespas outran him. Like the cyberpunk Vespas had no problem getting away from him. It was so
that just tells you everything
ridiculous.
you need to know.
So credit to Game Rant here for clarifying this for us. So yeah, it was digitally voiceovered, and they were wondering, they have to ask the same questions. They're like, it's weird because of Mark Hamill's involvement in the series and Disney or in Star Wars in general. So they're crediting it up to maybe it was scheduling conflicts or whatever. But either way, yeah, it seems like it was digital enhancement.
Good call out there, Shy. Yeah,
Only the facts here on the Focus Target podcast.
yeah, that's right. We are about truth on the Focus Target podcast. All right, fellas. Any final thoughts before we kick it out of here? All right. Cool. Great. Wonderful. This is the way. All right. Well, if you have thoughts about the Book of Boba Fett, if you want to tell us why we're so right, so wrong, or talk about what we failed to talk about that you wanted to hear us talk about, drop us a line. We best place to reach us. I'm going to flip it around this time. The best place to reach us is by email, focustargetpodcast@gmail.com. Send us an email. One of the three of us will write you back. I can guarantee you that. If you don't want to send us an email, we're also on Twitter at Focus Target. We have a YouTube page, Focus Target Podcast. You want to go back and check out that fat interview podcast we did last week or 2 weeks ago. And in addition to that, let me make this clear. I meant to mention this at the top of the podcast, but let me say it now. Due to just family concerns, mostly because I have a child and I'm pretty busy with stuff. And we are going to an every other week podcasting schedule. So if you like to hear us every week, you're kind of weird. I think every 2 weeks is probably a better pace for the madness that we bring. But yeah, so you can expect us around this time every other week, usually on Tuesdays, unless we have to reschedule. So yeah, that's what's up. Finally, we broadcast live on twitch.tv / Focus Target Podcast. So thank you all for being with us for episode 109 of the Focus Target Podcast. I am your host, Smiley. Captain Smiley.
This is Shy.
And I'm Van. Cover us, Fennec. We're out.
Then it could cover me. I'm all right with that.
You know what I'm saying? Oh, we're still recording.